Okay, I'm going to do a second video on baits that I would use during the springtime, which I am waiting very patiently to use, as my waters now are closed until the open of trout season, so I've got to wait till I can go fishing yet for a little bit. These are baits I would use when the water is still cold. The fish are still kind of sluggish, lethargic, but they're going to start coming in, thinking about spawning. I won't see spawning fish here till May, probably the end of May, start of June. Of course, I live in a region where it's cold, so the colder the area you live, the later the fish are going to spawn, because they need a 70-degree water temperature to spawn, for a bass at least. Pike and muskie can spawn in colder water than that, but they still need warm water to for the eggs to incubate and stuff properly. So the colder an area you live, the later in the season. Like fish in Florida and Southern California, they're already done, spawning. They're already done spawning or still spawning. So it depends on what region you live in the country. But jerk baits is what we're going to look at today. This is a jerk bait. As you can see, that's a bass colored one. This is a Rapala jerk. This is a suspending jerk bait. A lot of the baits, I like the suspending ones. You can get them in three actions. You can get the ones that sink, you get ones that float, and then you get ones that suspend. So when I cast this out, it will initially float, and it's got a little lip on it. It'll go down 3 or 4 feet, and it'll stay at that. When I stop it in the water, it will stop dead where I stop it. Now, a lot of people look at these and think, oh, it's got a lip, it's a crankbait. It's not a crankbait, and it shouldn't be fished like a crankbait. This is a crankbait. Little square bill crankbait, deadly, of course, shad color. It's got a small lip, so this one dives pretty shallow. But you get ones that have larger lips on them. So like this Lucky Strike here. This is a real large lip on it, so it dives much deeper than this little square bill would. That little square bill will be for shallow water. But these are crankbaits, so they're designed to be fished at a constant speed. You use the reel to fish these baits, and what they'll do is in the water they will dive, and then they will shake from side to side, and you can hear it has a rattle in it, so it's going to attract fish with noise too. But it fires up schools of bass. You bring this through a shoal of bass, and the action of the bait, the vibration of it, the noise of it will get them fired up. And then once one starts to eat, the idea is that you'll get more and more of them to eat because they're competitive. But this is a crankbait. This is a crankbait. This, even though it has a lip, is not a crankbait. But you do not fish this like a crankbait. This is a jerkbait. So for cold water, also these are work good in the fall too when the water starts to cool down again, or for in the spring when the water is cold. What you would do is cast it, and then you would use the rod to fish it. So you would use a cadence to fish this bait. So what you would do is reel it down till you get to the depth that you want it to work at. Like I said, this will work at maybe 3 or 4 feet under the water. And then you would twitch your rod tip. You would give it 1, 2, reel, 1, 2, 3, reel, 1, 2, reel, and then you're pausing the bait. So what it's doing under the water is it will jerk, 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 and then pause, and then jerk, jerk, pause, jerk, pause, and all the while it's moving, darting from side to side like real erratically, so it looks like a wounded fish. And a lot of times you'll get strikes when you pause that bait. So you jerk it and then pause it, or jerk it so it darts left, right, and then it will pause. Now if you can set them up to suspend, so I can put like suspend weights on this, or I can put lead wire on the hooks if it's not a suspending model, and test it in a tank so I can get it to hold the depth that I want it to hold. Some of them, like I said, will float, so as soon as you stop it, it starts to rise real slow. Some of them will sink, so as soon as you stop it, it starts to sink real slow. Sometimes that works. Sometimes the fish will like it floating, they'll like it sinking. Sometimes they like it to pause. I like it to pause and hold its depth, because a lot of times the fish will follow it. He'll come right up behind it, and it'll be jerk, 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 stop. And as soon as it stops, he's right on it. He'll attack it. But it's good for lethargic fish. It's not like the crankbait where you're constantly winding at a constant speed. So you're wind, and the crankbait is running at a constant speed. It's good for covering a lot of water, but it's used to fire up, like I said, it's used to fire up schools of fish. But this is really effective in cold water, especially when the bass are kind of, they're still sluggish and they're not into chasing baits quite yet. This is very, very effective. As you can see, there's a bunch of different colors. This one is bass. This one here, the Matsu, this is a rainbow trout. Same thing, they all have shallow kind of lips. They all work between 2 to 3 feet. Some of them are subsurface, they'll work right on the top. They also come in lots of different sizes. That's a pretty large one there, that's probably 4.5 inch. There's a Yozuri in a minnow color. Again, a real small lip on this. You can see the lip is really, really small. Nice purple head. You can get these in clown. I don't have one here, but I do have one in another box that I have. It's a white with a chartreuse on the belly and then a red head. They call it a clown color. Absolutely deadly, especially for smallmouth. You can see this has like reflective foil in it. So when it's coming through the water, it's creating a lot of flash. A lot of attraction, by that. The bill doesn't so much make the bait will wobble a little bit from side to side, but it's more so a dart, left, right, left, right, left, right. That's how it's going to move when you twitch the rod tip. But also it gives off a lot of flash. So for clear water, this I would use in clear water. Or natural color is really good for clear water, like the bass or the trout or the minnow here, where it has these. It's also shad. It has a little shad spot on it there too, but it's minnow shaped. This one is a Bass Pro Shop, an XPS. This is another classic, black back, silver side, and it's got a little pink red on the belly. Again, real shallow lip. It's got that wedge-shaped head on it. And it's curved also. Some of them you see are curved this way. That gives it that good side-to-side jerk. You see it's got trebles in it, so you get a good chance of hooking up. Sometimes the fish won't necessarily want to eat it, but out of aggravation they will slash at the bait or swat at the bait. They do the same thing with crankbaits. So sometimes you'll get a snag on the outside of the mouth, but after he kind of slashes at it. This is another good color as a perch. This is a blue fox, a hot pike. I'll get it unhooked here. You can see it's like a bright neon yellow perch color. Really bright. This would be good for darker water, dingy water, muddy water. It's really bright, very reflective. It's got the orange belly, again double trebles, and it has a sound chamber. Again, same characteristic, real shallow bill, square bill for deflecting off cover. You can see that the bill is not round, it's square, so it bounces off of tree limbs and stumps and stuff like that really well. That can also trigger strikes if you bounce. Anytime you deflect the lure off of cover, that's going to give you a real good reaction bite. Sometimes that really mimics a wounded fish. You can do the same thing with a spinnerbait. If you run it into a tree limb or a stump and you get it to bounce off of it, a lot of times if there's a fish by that stump, if he sees that lure bounce off that structure, he'll come out and he'll grab it. Here's an interesting one. The old Rapala Kraken minnow. It's got a disc in the side of it here. You can see the big tungsten disc. And then it has a tungsten weight. So you can hear when I switch it from side to side. It's got a real loud knock. But the cadence of that knock, that sound travels a long way in the water. It's got a little bit of flashaboo in the feather on the back here. You can see also this is a sure grip hook. Real unusual shaped hook. You got a standard treble hook and then you got an EWG arm on it. Man, that hook is deadly. A lot of times I've caught fish on this if they short strike it or just nip it, and you have them just by the lip, just on that hook. And it's really hard for them to throw that hook out once they get it in their mouth. It's impossible for them to throw it. That works really well. This again is a shad or minnow color, nice and silver. As you can see when I turn it in the light, it's real, a lot of flash in it. Got the black, green, pearl green back on it. These are excellent baits. Anything Rapala is really good. You can hear that knocker in it though. It's like That's really good sound. Here's another favorite one of mine. This is a Strike King one. It's a KVD. This is bluegill color. KVD, man, he's pretty good at using any type of bait. Of course, they market a lot of baits with his name on it, but he's really good with jerk bait, especially for smallmouth. So they came out with this one from Strike King. As you can see, the back of it is got glitter shine, and then real natural color bluegill. Not necessarily the shape of a bluegill, but it's the color of a bluegill. As you can see, this one has 3 treble hooks on it. Again, same action. It works at about 4 to 5 feet, and it will jerk from side to side real quick, and then you can pause it. Again, it has a rattle in it, and that will, you know, attract fish. You can get them that are silent too. Sometimes a silent bait works better in pressured water, but these are super effective for cold water. For largemouth, smallmouth, pike too. Pike will take them. Big trout will take them. Anything, any type of predatory fish. They do come in different sizes. As you can see, here's a really small one. Here's a really tiny one, little rebel. That's like a small little minnow one. That one would be good for perch or bass when it's really cold. A lot of times if the water is cold, I'll downsize the lure, and that seems to work. Here's an X-Wrap in orange. For whatever reason, this orange color, I've had a lot of success with it in my water. Now, like I said, my water is usually pretty clear. Has the red head. This is a golden shiner color. You can see it's got the orange belly, and then it's got a gold reflector in it, and then it's got a dark olive back again. This is a good sized bait. It's 3 inch, 2 trebles. Again, it's got the flashaboo feather on the back of it. That can add a lot of attraction to it too, and it's got the small little lip on it. Works really well. Easy to fish. You can throw it in regular bass tackle. I like throwing, I fish a lot with braid. I use pretty similar setup to what I would use for my spinnerbait. Medium heavy rod, pretty fast reel so I can recover line pretty quick. I also fish these on spinning reels as well as bait casters. The larger ones I'll fish on bait casters. The smaller ones like this I'll fish on spinning tackle. Just works much better. But they're super effective, especially for lethargic fish. I'm trying to see if I have any more. This is a pretty good one. Another Rapala, blueback herring color. Little smaller shape, minnow type size again. Smaller hooks though. It's got the flashaboo on the back again. Same action, man. This thing can dart back and forth in the water, and you stop it, start to rise up a little bit, dart it again back and forth. Very attractive to the fish. Something you can get like this is a pike color. Another Rapala again. Jointed, so you get a lot more action out of it. A lot of action on that tail. The split jointed body. This is a pike color, little jack pike color. Again, natural color. You can get them like in the hot pike that are, you know, stick out a mile, like the clowns stick out a mile too. The color sometimes is very attractive and aggravating to the fish. There's another rebel one in emerald green for St. Patrick's Day today. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Again, real simple bait. It's got the hammer tone finish on it to produce a lot of flash. But, you know, you kind of size your bait, again, to match the type of fish that the fish are feeding on. That's pretty important. That alone can get you a lot more bites than just changing the color. The size can be important. Sometimes they're not too attentive to color, especially if it's a reaction bite. But the size, if you match the size of that bait you're using to the size of the fish that the fish are actually eating, that's half the battle. That is half the battle. Okay, one more thing I want us to look at before I go. I have a very old lure here, and I was hoping somebody could help me identify it. I actually had talked about this lure to the Eternal Angler. He's another YouTube angler that I watch his channel pretty religiously, him and Northern Mike. They fish his Lake St. Clair up north in Michigan. So you should go check out his channel too. There's a lot of musky fishing, bass fishing, really good. But this is it. I'll hold it up nice and close here so you can see it. I believe it has a little double hook underneath here. It has a swivel in the front of it, right here. I'll put it in my hand so you can get a good look at it. You can see it's jointed with a metal hinge. It's got a little brass hinge in the center of it. Now, obviously it had a tail on here, but the tail is gone. And it did have a lip on it here, but the lip is gone. And you can see where the back of the bait is actually caved in. It's got sucked down. You can see it has a little dorsal fin on it here. I believe it's actually made of rubber. It has a name on the bottom of it, but I really can't make it out. There's a name on the bottom of it here, but I can hardly read it. But this lure is like really, really old. I do believe it was my great-grandfather's. And I've had it for as long as I've been alive, pretty much. Over the years, though, it has deteriorated. Like I said, it used to have a little lip on it, and it used to have the tail on it, but it did come apart. But as you can see, it is jointed with that little hinge in the back there. Like I said, I believe the lure is made out of rubber, but I really have no other information about it. I don't know who made it, what company made it, or how old it is. So if anybody recognizes it, I would definitely appreciate if you mention down in the comments, there it is from the other side, what you think it is or where you think it came from. You can see here the line where the lip used to be. The little eye detail on it there. It's pretty well made for a lure of its age. It's like, it's lasted this long. I honestly don't know who made it or how old it is, but I would be definitely interested to find out. You see it there? You can see the detail on it is pretty good. It has the little gill detail and the eyeball on it. And the fin, it has all the little scales carved in it. But like I said, I do believe it's rubber because you can see how it's collapsed. It's deteriorated with age, but pretty interesting. Here we go, I'll give you a close-up of it. It's pretty interesting. Such an old lure. Probably still catch fish on it. So yeah, if anybody has any information about that, just put it in the comments below, and I'd really appreciate it. All that's left to do now is get to do some fishing. Okay, thanks everybody for watching. Like I said, happy St. Patrick's Day, and if you're out fishing, good luck on the water.